Hi makers, it's Katie McKinley. The class that I'm going to walk you through today is the Wild Things hat. Now, I just made the fox version, but I have a ton of different critters that you can do, or you can just do a plain hat. This hat is an ear flap style hat. So it goes down around the ears. It's slightly higher in the front and slightly lower in the back. And it's double-sided, double lined. It's super cozy. You can use a woven, so you can use a non-stretch fabric for this, like fleece or flannel or even quilting cotton, but you can also use something with stretch too. So it is pretty versatile in what you can make. I designed this pattern, I don't know, it feels like a million years ago now, because I was doing this program called Caps for Chemo, where I was having when I used to sell online, I was having my customer base order a hat, and then I would make two. One would go to them, and one would go to a chemo unit in the local West Virginia hospitals near me. So I made a ton of these hats for my customers, but I also made a ton of these hats for my son and for myself, although I chose usually not to put a critter on top of it. These come in a lot of sizes, so you can go through kids to a large adult head, and it's super quick to make and put together. I think you're going to love this pattern, and I hope to see all the different hats that you create throughout the, next year or so when you decide to pull out this pattern. All right, let's get going on the Wild Bunch hats. There are some options for you for fabric. The pattern is designed to be usable with both, well, it's designed with non-starch fabrics in mind. So you can use a flannel if you want to, which I've done many times with this pattern, but you can also use a fleece, which is one of my favorite types. Some fleeces have good stretch to them, some don't, but it's designed to fit a head without needing any stretch on it. Just make sure that you cut the size based upon the head circumference of the person you're making it for. Today I'm going to be making the fox version, and here are all the pieces that we need. We need two hat backs, so one in main and one in lining, cut on the fold. We need two hat fronts, one in main and one in lining, cut on folds. We need two fox faces, or no, not two, just one, sorry, cut on the fold. We need two outer ears, and then we need two inner ears. And then also you're going to need some pins and clips, something for the eyes. You can embroider them, you can use heat transfer vinyl, you can use buttons. And then, typical sewing tools. You'll need scissors, pins, clips, a sewing needle and thread, and a sewing machine to make this happen. So it goes together really quickly. I think you're going to be really in love with the results of this hat. Since we are doing a face version with this fox here, we're going to go ahead and start with all the face details and get those done, since it's just easier to do it now. So you just need a hat front, the outer part that you're going to be using, the main fabric, and then you need the face piece, and it should fit 1-to-1 right on that front curve right there. And then just add a couple of pins or clips. Now I will remind you, it does say in the pattern itself, but just saying it out loud here, the face pieces, so any of the details like the monkey face or the robot face or what the other faces that exist in these patterns, they are not designed with any seam allowances. They're meant to be cut with a raw edge or sewn down and appliqued like that. If you have a fabric that is that will fray a long time along the way, you're going to want to put an interfacing on the back of it, or give yourself a little bit of extra room, and then add your seam allowance and hem it if you want to. But these are just meant to be top stitched along the edge here, And so you are going to need something to help keep it from fraying if you're using a frayable fabric. But let's go ahead and just edge stitch this face on. And of course, our little fox cutie needs some eyeballs. So the next thing we're going to do is give him some eyes. You can place these wherever you want. I would just recommend to keep it away from the bottom edge because you're going to need to sew and the buttons will get in the way while you're doing that. But we're just going to add the eyeballs. And again, if you want to embroider eyes on for safety reasons, if you're gifting this to a small child, if you just prefer the look of embroidery, I would do that. You can use cute like heat transfer vinyl eyeballs, whatever kind of eyes suits you the best. Obviously, that's the one that you should be using. So I'm just going to hand stitch. Oh, try that word again. I'm going to hand stitch these on. I am laughing at myself because I have about 8 million buttons in my button tin, and I don't have any large black buttons that match. And I'm not about to go buy new buttons because Lord knows I have way too many as it is, and I just can't add to my collection. I need to be removing from my collection. So I'm using brown. And also my white fleece just kind of up and walked away. I don't know, it grew legs. I don't know where it is. So I'm using a tan, but I think it still looks pretty cute against this orange. So I'm not going to be too upset about that. But again, you're just hand stitching if you choose to use a button. We're hand stitching this on, tying a couple knots just to secure it, and then going ahead and stitching the other eye in a similar spot. And there we go, our little fox has eyeballs. Cute. Cute, cute, cute. All right, we're gonna set the face aside for a minute while we work on the ears. Now, as you can see, the outer ear is much thinner and taller than the inner ear is, and that was designed purposely so it will kind of crunch on itself and fold in and create like a 3D effect on the ears. So all that we have to do is stitch these earpieces together, and it does seem a little finicky. I'm actually going to use clips instead of pins this time. But what you're going to do is just match up these outer edges, so from bottom to point, and then you're going to do it on the other side here. And it will have to need to be eased in and kind of, you know, fussed with a little bit to make it work. And then we're going to sew along these long edges. So again, they do fit. They don't look like they fit, but they do fit. And we're just going to ease them into one another and then head to the sewing machine and sew up those ears. So we are going to stitch up and around on both of these ears, and we will be right back. We're sewn up here, and I do recommend taking a pair of scissors and trimming those top points to help when we turn it, that the points will be pointier. And so we'll just turn these bad boys right side out, And again, remember that the front, the inner ear, is wider than the outer ear. So all you're going to do, and there's no real science to this, you just kind of want to fold the fabric on itself, give it like a little pleat until the two sides, the front or the outer ear and the inner ear, are the same width. And then run up here. I'm just going to put a clip there real quick. Whoop. And then run a basting stitch along the bottom ear, because when we go to attach it, then it kind of like folds on itself and it has a little bit of a, like I said, like a 3D effect to it, and it's not just sticking straight up. So you want to do that with this one too. And I like to make my pleats go different directions. Look at it upside down so my brain functions properly. So I can go the opposite way. We just kind of fudge it around until it meets the same size, and then we're going to go ahead and run a quick basting stitch on both of these so they stay in place. All right, our little ears are basted and looking cute. So we're going to grab our face piece again, and we're going to be adding our ears to it. Now, I think I left a guide in the pattern itself, but the ear placement is completely up to you. For foxes, I don't know, I would probably put it like 1 or 2 inches away from this opening here. For monkeys, obviously you're gonna go, and the robot, you're gonna go more like dead center. But the foxes, you're gonna kind of just see what you like in terms of how it fits. And then with it facing down, so the ear is facing down towards the body, we're going to add a clip. Just clip it in place. Get them about the same distance away from each other. We're looking, oop, I need to move this one a little bit more. We're looking good, we're looking good. And then we're going to take our hat back. We're going to place it with the right side facing down, right on top. We're going to align the outer edges. So we're going to start from the bottom here, work all the way up the sides. And if you're using fleece, I recommend using clips over pins, because this fabric gets thick real fast, especially when we've got a few layers. So we're clipping from one side to the other, basically all around the top of the hat. The top and the sides. We're just leaving this opening still for right now. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and stitch along both of these sides right here. And now we have the whole outer edge sewn of our main fabric piece. We're just going to go ahead and open this up and match these this opening that's still here, match these raw edges to one another. Add a couple of clips. And we are going to just sew along this opening and close that up. All right, this is all stitched up, and we are going to set that aside for right now and do those same exact steps with the lining fabrics of our hat. So no faces to put on this one. We're just going to sew the outer seams. So we're going to sew these outer seams, and then we're going to close up that middle like we just did with the main outer fabric. All right, we're all stitched up here. We've got both our outer and inner fabric, our main and our lining. And so what we're going to need to do is put our fabrics right sides together so we can sew them together officially. I'm going to turn my lining right side out and keep my main inside out. And I'm going to stick my lining inside my main hat, and I'm going to match up all of the seams and all of the raw edges and add some pins and clips along the way, pins or clips, because this is nearly the final step in our hat making process. So you're doing great. We're almost done. It's a super fun hat. Okay, here we go. And now we're going to sew this bottom edge here, but leaving like a 2 to 3 inch opening on the bottom back so we can turn our hat right side out. So stitch along the whole outer edge, but just leave this open so we can do some turning. We are all stitched up, and the last thing that we're going to do here is just, I always call this the birthing process. We're going to be turning our hat right side out, just pushing it through that opening that we created. And oh my gosh, how cute is our little fox looking? You want to push the ear flaps out, make sure everything turns the way that it should. If you're having trouble with your fabric, like if the curves are a little funky, you can go back and flip it right back through and clip into your curves and trim down some of that seam allowance. But honestly, with fleece, it's so bulky that it kind of just does what it does anyway. And we're almost at our final step, and that's really closing up this hole and adding some top stitching. So you can, if you want to, just hand stitch this shut and call it good, but especially with fleece, because it's just a bulky fabric and it likes to move around on us. I like to put a top stitch on here so it helps keep the lining inside the hat. So we're going to just tuck our seam allowances into this back where the opening is. And then I'm going to clip that shut just to make sure it stays when I run to my machine. And I'm going to top stitch along the entire bottom edge. And we did it! Our little fox hat is complete and he's so cute. I love that the ears turn out the way that they do. It's just such an easy to wear hat. It's quick to make, and these, honestly, like if you're a vendor at like craft shows during the fall and winter months, these critter hats would probably do super well for you in child sizes. The ear flaps are great. It's all my son used to wear when he was little, and now he's not so little anymore. So critter hats are off the list for an almost 14-year-old, but I think they're adorable, and I cannot wait to see what you whip up with these. And I just hope that this tutorial was helpful, and I hope that you've been enjoying the sewing retreat as much as I have. Oh my gosh, I hope that you loved this tutorial. It was so simple, so easy, and you can tell how addicting it can be to create these critter hats. The Wild Bunch hat is the pattern name, and it honestly takes such little fabric that you can make like a million of these. These are great for Christmas gifts or holiday gifts in general. They're also great if you are a seller, like a vendor at festivals, especially like fall and winter festivals. Having cute little hats that are grab and go kind of items, especially outdoor festivals. I sold like a million hats last year because it was really cold outside in October. So this is a great booth filler if you need something like that. And also they're just really fun and satisfying projects to put together. So I hope you loved it. I hope you had fun. Thanks everyone.